Hi everyone, I'm Angela and welcome to Crafting with Angela. Today I am going to be showing you how to make a decollage journal spot as part of ABC April 2025. I am super excited to be part of Margreth and Toni's April collaboration. It's called ABC April 2025 and each day has a different letter assigned to it. So today is Friday the 4th of April. So I'm going to show you how to make a decollage journal. It has a different spot. So this is my prototype. I will show you how to make this step by step. And basically what decollage is, it's a bit like collage, taking that step further. So what you do is you collage lots of pieces of scrap and junk and magazine pages all down on top of each other. And then you, after they're dried, you come in and you tear them off to create a background that has lots of dimension and lots of texture on it. So this was my prototype. What I will say is I'll take you through my process here, but I think it really works. It works really well if you have a focal point somewhere in the image. So I like to make sure that my focal point on the top is a person, normally because they're the ones that work best, but I have seen them done with flowers or trees or motorbikes. All you need to do is make sure you have a focal point on the top. So let me just set that to one side and I'll take you through what I am doing. So what I have done is I have gone through all of my junk mail, magazines, book pages, all of that to pull together some information or some pieces that I think would be really good for this. And what I found was this cover back from 2023 for Private Eye, which is two really good pictures, one of Barbie and one of Oppenheimer, and I just think this would be, they would both make really good focal points on the journal spots. So I'm going to use this as my focal point, and what I then did is I went through all of my like I said, my magazines. I've cut out a couple of pieces of card. I think this is the card that you get when you buy sheets or shirts, you know, the piece of card that they have inside that. It's white, shiny white on one side, and it's that paler creamy grey colour in the back. And I've cut these to be approximately 6.5 inches by 3 3/4. I just felt it worked nicely with the page size that I have and everything like that. So I've cut out a couple of sheets of them and I have gone through everything. So I have two lots here, so let me just go through these separately. This first one is the pile that I went through for Oppenheimer, and then the second pile is for Barbie. And that's just because I was trying to pick colours and everything that I felt matched the image really well. So I'll come back to these couple of pages here, but what I wanted to do was go through all my, like I said, my magazines. There's a bowl of curry, ads. You're looking for things that are lots of bright colours. This was a really nice picture of a field of sunflowers, but I just like the colours on it. What I'm going to do is take all of these pages and roughly cut them in half. I'll move that smaller one to the front, because half means I'll fit 2 layers of each of these on the journal card. And what you want to be doing here is building up the layers. I also then have some other random pages. These are ads. That's a page from a National Trust magazine, an ad for National Trust. Again, we're looking for bright colours. And then I liked for Oppenheimer, if we look at this picture, the person himself is in a red and yellow tone, and I didn't really have many papers or magazines or anything that had that colour palette on it. So what I did was I went through my book pages. I found these book pages and I just have coloured them in with a yellow ink. Now I can't remember if this was Distress Oxide and Squeezed Lemonade or if this was Memento Dewdrop and Dandelion. I'm not 100% sure, but basically I've just coloured it in with a yellow ink, and then I took a book page and I've coloured that book page in a red ink Again, I can't remember which ink it was. I have quite a few different reds in here, but that's all I want to do. So I'm going to cut this one in half. I have one last book page here that isn't coloured. Not sure if I'm going to use it or not. And for these ones that I've coloured myself, I don't really mind how well blended they are. It's just to add that touch of colour. Like I said, I have a book page there that isn't coloured that I'm going to keep. So that's the pile for the Oppenheimer all cut down. And now what I'm going to do is come in with the pile that I have for the Barbie picture. There's the sheet of card we're going to use. We have, this is a French to English dictionary that I've coloured pink. Again, I have a sheet of just book page without anything on it. I have some ads with a predominantly yellow theme. This is my music page, and it's been dyed with antique linen. Cut that in half. Some random pages here. I like this just for the dark colour. These are some ads that have blues in them. And then I have these pages here that are a mixture of, I think that's National Trust magazine, that's an ad in Private Eye. Various bits and pieces. I'm going to keep that one to the side. These ones I'm just going to cut in half. Again, like I did with Barbie. Roughly cut them in half just to make sure we have enough to duplicate what we're going to be doing throughout this. And then the last one I have kept here is because I really like, this is a copy of a Damon Hirst print. I really like the colours on it. So I'm not so worried about everything else. But what I am going to do is come in here and just cut this down this way. So it's a bit more of a square around that image. We don't need those two darker pieces. And then I just need to decide whether I want it to be cut in half. Yep, I think I do. And I'm just going to come in and cut that heart in half down the middle. Okay. And that can go into my pile as well. So that's the two different piles. And all I am going to do, I want to fussy cut out the people in this. So the Oppenheimer is going to be really simple. I'm not sure if I'm going to cut that hand out for Barbie or if I'm just going to cut down the side, but we'll cut that out at the end. What I want to do in the meantime is just go through with some glue stick, so any glue stick, and we just want to glue these down onto the page. What I am going to do is my plain book page is going to go down first of all, so that I have that on top of the white, and then I'm just going to roughly randomly go through these papers and choose something to glue down. You can use any glue for this. Glue stick works well for me. I don't know that I would use the likes of Burley Arts or Art Glitter Glue because I think that's probably going to get too strong a glue surface. But what you do want to do is PVA, you can water it down, you could use matte medium, anything along those lines. I'm just going to come in here with my bone folder just to make sure I've got a really good bond. And if I turn this over, what you will see is that all the way around here I have left a piece of paper, and that that's not glued. And what that helps with is if you want to, when it comes to pulling it up, if you have a bit left over the edge, it makes it much easier to pull and peel. So I'm going to fast forward as I randomly choose pieces of paper from my pile here and stick them on, and then we will come back after I've done all of that and show you how I glue the top piece on. So let me just speed through this. Before I do, I'm just moving everything around on my desk and seeing that I can see the different colours. It's nice to have these different colours together so I know what I'm just going to kind of organise this out, especially for those pages that we cut in half. They kind of go together. I probably won't stick all of these down. We don't need that many of them. But you do, if you're doing this at home, you do want to kind of make sure that you have, I would say, at least 8 to 10 layers to get the best impact. Okay, so I am just going to go through and randomly stick some of these pieces down. I do, before I put my focal image, I won't be putting the pink on because I think that'll take away from the focal image. So although it's mostly random, it's probably, there's going to be some thought to it, but let me go through this on fast forward and catch up at the end. I've got a good couple of layers on there and I'm losing track of exactly where the journal spot is. So what I'm going to do is come in from behind and just trim this down roughly. Doesn't have to be exact, but just enough so we know roughly where the actual journal card is. So I fussy cut it out the picture of Barbie. I'm trying to line up with exactly where my edges are. So edge there and an edge there. I'm trying to work out if I want anything more behind it than that. This is one of the problems of using thin paper. With a glue stick it can kind of tear really easily, but equally it should mean that it fits back into place remarkably easily as well. So so that's this one all glued together. A couple of things to note: if you do tear your image like that, just try and line it back up again as best you can. At the end of the day, we're going to be tearing the rest of it anyway. It's not going to be that obvious an issue. You will see some wrinkles, and that's just because we're piling lots of layers of paper on top of each other, and then you know, the glue will, regardless of what glue you use, you're going to get a bit of bumps on it. But all we want to do now is set this to one side to dry, and you want it to dry fully, so it's going to take a good couple of hours to dry. So all I'm going to do now is swap over, get the Oppenheimer one ready to go, and then I'll show you how I glue that together as well. Okay, that's the two journal spots glued up. All we need to do now is leave them to dry. I'll maybe put something heavy on them just to make sure they dry flat, and then I'll come back to it once they're dry. Okay, so I have left both of these to dry. I put a heavy box on top of them so you can see they've dried nice and flat. And now we're going to come in with the fun part and do the tearing off. So I'm going to put Oppenheimer, we decide we'll work on Barbie to begin with. I am going to bring in my pokey tool because I think it's just handy. Don't need it all the time, but sometimes it can be handy to try and, you know, take a corner up and whatnot. So this one hasn't glued down perfectly, but that's fine. What I want to do with this is I want to try and tear this around the edge of my focal image. I'm trying to keep that picture, the part in the background. Now you can see that hasn't glued down at top. That was deliberate. If you remember, I did say that I like the idea of keeping, where possible, having a bit that doesn't it doesn't glue down, just to make it easier to pick up. What you can do is, if at the end there's a piece that's still up that you actually want to have pressed on, you can come in and put a bit more glue down to hold it in place. What I'm trying to do here is go through this and give the image a bit of a background there. I'll come in with this bit here as well from this side. The one thing I will say is, one, I keep all the pieces that I tear off to one side, so I'm just keeping these in a pile at the side, because sometimes it can be useful to come in and have them. Sometimes you tear something off that you didn't mean to tear off. And also we're wanting to you're wanting to think about what does this look like as a final product, if you like, as a final journal tag. As you can see, some of these pieces are torn off better than, or glued down better than others, and that is absolutely fine. I have seen other people doing this where they are really I won't say random with where they tear, so they just sort of grab a piece and tear it down. And with my initial one, this was my one that I did to begin with, that's kind of what I did, and it was only afterwards I realized how nice it would have been to sort of give a bit more emphasis to the focal point. So you can do that and come up with something that's really random, but you don't have to. And what I'm doing here is just keeping in mind where it gets torn up, and we want to try and keep a bit of the color everywhere we can, and we'll basically work on our way through. So I'm working this one side to begin with. I'm kind of going in here and saying I want to keep some of the paper at each stage, so we're building up this background. So every time I'm trying to go that wee bit further closer to the edge and leave some of that paper there. I'm also trying to keep in mind exactly where the exactly where the backing card sits, so that I am, you know, not paying so much attention to this part of the one, because this is beyond where it would sit. But I do want to try and make sure I get all of these colors coming across. And depending on how many layers you have put on, will depend on how much you want to tear off or will tear off, okay? I really like that orange. I want that coming up in the background. Try and turn in one direction, but it's not always successful. It depends also on which side has been glued down. You know, so I can pick this bottom bit up here easier than I can this top. So I'm going to try it one more time and see if I can get a bit more of a edge here. Oh, so I'm going to have to go for the bit at the bottom, which I think, if I'm being honest, it's actually 2 pages stuck together, but sometimes you just have to go with it. Oh, there it is indeed. You can see that pink showing up there now as well. Let's see if I can get in between those 2 layers. You can also come up and use a scalpel or a blade of some sort if you want to try and get in between the layers, or if you want, you could go around your focal image with a scalpel to make sure that it, no matter what happens, it doesn't get torn into. I am not that precious about my focal images. I don't mind if they tear up a bit. This part here is about having fun, about just playing around and seeing what comes up rather than being really prescriptive with anything. Okay. And also I think this is a good part where depending on what thicknesses of papers you've used and all, you can get some really good images coming through here. Okay, so what we're looking to do here is add some interest and some depth with the layers. If I could, I would try and pick a bit more of that up. It's glued down quite well. The other thing you can do is just change this tool over. If you happen to have a sander, or this is a piece of sanding paper just on one of those mini tools, you can also come in and just kind of take off the worst of the excess. Do be careful, because some of the papers, like if you look at that dark brown one, what that has done using the sanding tool is has taken some of the brown off, which I actually don't mind. This is a distressed look I'm going for. But if you have a piece that's, you know, you actually like the way it looks, don't necessarily go in with a sanding tool on it. And I'm just going to keep doing this. I'll fast forward so you're not watching this constantly on repeat. And all I'm going to do is go in here and try pulling out different pieces of paper and whatnot to see what we can get coming through here. And then when I finish the other side, I'll stop and come back to you. Okay, so I have mostly gone through everything. I'm going to turn it over now and just trim it down to the size of the card I cut initially. I deliberately do this from the back, because if I do it from the front I'll be like, oh, I want to keep that bit. And the whole point of this is that it is at least partly random, and you know, kind of want a fun time when you turn it on and go, oh, that's what that looks like. Let me put all these bits to the side. Oh, okay. I love the way this sides. I love this picture that we're getting off here. There are a couple of bits here that I think I probably want to stick down a bit more. But I do think the bottom part here is just feeling a bit neglected, I suppose. So, oh, there's a nice piece of pink underneath there too. So, let me see if I can get a bit more colour coming through here. What I'm trying to do now is just try and pull it back in. I don't want it to echo the image the whole way along, but not the focal point the whole way along. But I do like giving it a bit of a shape. So I really like that piece there. So I think that's why I sort of see that elbow coming out there. Not exactly, but I like the way that works. Like I said, some of these pieces will need to be stuck down, but I'm going to wait until I'm happy with the end construction, and then once I'm happy with it, I can turn around and look and see what else I can do. There is sometimes where I get pieces like this where I'm like, I like it, but I kind of don't like all that darkness there. So I'm trying to see if I can peel that piece up a bit somewhere. That's exactly what I want, just to try and get a bit more depth in there. Let's see what's the piece underneath that. That's dark again. I like that. Part of me wants to take a bit more of this white out, but I'm scared that if I try to take a bit more of the white out, I'm going to lose some of the pink because it's not easily put in here. What I could do if I really wanted was take a piece of this pink and come in and glue it back down there and just give it that idea that the pink sort of flew the whole way. But I don't think I'm going to do that at this stage. I actually quite like the way that has turned out. So I'm going to call that one finished. So let me show you how I finish before I move on to the final one. I'm going to come in with a corner rounder. I like to round the corners on all of my journal cards if it'll fit in. I've rounded those corners. I'm going to come in with my Burley Arts glue to glue down these edges, and that's because I really do want these sticking down now. And this is a nice strong glue that should theoretically keep everything in place. Just going in and putting dabs down. It doesn't need to be lots and lots. The other thing you can do if you feel it needs it is you can go over this with something like a, all of this focal point has come off, which I hadn't quite realised. But what you could do is come in with some matte medium, liquid matte medium, or I think I have Liquitex in the cupboard there, and you could come in with it, and that would just, you know, allow you give that bit of extra protection and turn it down a bit matte so that, you know, if that was the style you were looking for. What I'm basically doing at this stage is just coming in, putting a small dot of glue under certain edges to keep them down. Most of that stuff down. If you are going to use something like burley art glue to glue the edges down like that, just make sure that, that you don't get it all covered in your finger, then pull more of the paper up than you are trying to stick down. But that's that. And then the last thing I'm going to do is change my tool from the sanding paper to I'm just going to fill with some Distress Oxide and ink around the edges. Just to stress down those edges a bit more. That then is my first journaling card completed. The background, the back is just the plain back of the card. I don't think it needs anything more than that on it, because that's definitely a colour of material, a colour paper that you can write on. I'll just come around the edges with the distressed ink there, just to follow that pattern on through. And that's the first one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the Oppenheimer one in, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing with it, but I'll do it on super speed so that it doesn't take up too much more of the time, and then you can see the end product. Okay, so that one, that's the Oppenheimer one completed. I do think got some really cool patterns down here when I pulled several layers up at once, and you can see we got the books and all the different things in here. It looks to me completely different from the background, how the background in this one turned out, but in it, you know, in equally a fun way. Let me come on and just cut down, round off the 4 corners. Okay, and do exactly the same thing again with the stress oxides. I'm just going to come in from the top, and there are a couple of spots here that I will need to glue down, but I'll do that off camera. So, did manage to pull up the very bottom layer. There's some of the white card showing there, so I'm just trying to make sure it doesn't look quite so out of place with a bright white piece of card. And there we go. That is the 2 journal cards made by Decollage. I have really enjoyed being part of this, of Margreth's and Toni's ABC April 2025 collaboration. I'll be back next Friday with another video, but in the meantime there are lots of other videos to watch every day. Please do subscribe and leave a comment in the video below if there's something you want me to, if you have any ideas for the other days, and hop on over to any of the other videos to see what they are doing.